Most blackouts last minutes, maybe hours. But the ones that change people, the ones that leave marks, those happen in the dark between seconds. When you lose the ability to see, you find out exactly what was already there with you. You're watching the Nightmares Index. If you're new here, subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a single upload from this channel. Before we begin, drop a comment and tell me where in the world you are watching from right now, and what time it is on your clock. This is where it begins. The metal was warm against my spine. Not warm like afternoon sun. Not warm like something heated. Warm like something alive. Like the walls of that elevator had been holding their own temperature for hours before I got inside. I had my back flat against the rear panel, and my hands were pressed palms down against the surface, and the heat of it was wrong. It was the kind of warm that metal should not be at 11:40 at night on the 9th floor of a commercial office building in downtown Milwaukee in February. And the man standing 4 feet in front of me in that pitch-black box, the man I could no longer see, had stopped talking mid-sentence, exactly 11 seconds before the lights went out. I need to go back. I was doing contract IT, work for a property management company that handled 4 commercial high-rises along West Wisconsin Avenue. And on February 14th, 2019, I had been called in at 9:15 p.m. to troubleshoot a network switch failure on the 11th floor of one of the older buildings in the district. I remember the date because my girlfriend at the time had been furious about me leaving dinner, and the argument we had in the parking lot of the restaurant is burned into my memory with the kind of clarity that only guilt produces. The building was mostly vacant after 7 p.m., a few law offices on 6, an accounting firm on 9, the rest dark. Security was a single guard in the lobby, a man I'd signed in with maybe 30 times over the past year. He waved me through, logged my name on the clipboard, and told me the 11th floor was unlocked and waiting. The building has 2 elevators. One was out of service, had been for 3 weeks, a parts issue, so everyone was using the east elevator, a freight-converted passenger car that was slow, loud, and smelled like old cable grease and something faintly chemical. Something I always associated with the specific scent of electrical insulation that's been warm for too long. I pressed 11. The doors closed. The car stopped on 9. The doors opened, and a man stepped in. Late 40s, maybe early 50s. Gray slacks, a navy windbreaker, carrying a leather portfolio under one arm. He nodded at me once. I nodded back. He pressed the button for the lobby. 1. Nothing unusual. People worked late in this building all the time. I'd shared this elevator with strangers dozens of times. He said something about the cold outside, and I said something back. And we were having the kind of conversation that 2 people have in an elevator, when neither of them wants silence, but neither of them wants to actually talk. He mentioned he'd been in the accounting firm finishing quarterly reports, and I told him I was IT, headed up to 11, and he made a joke about how nobody in this building could keep their systems running for more than a week. I laughed. He laughed. The elevator passed the 7th floor, and then he stopped talking. Not trailed off. Stopped. Like someone had pressed pause on a recording. Mid-word. The word was anyway, and he got to any. And then there was nothing. I looked over at him, and I was about to say something, probably just a confused, "You good?" when every light in that elevator car died at once. Not flickered, not dimmed. Died. The overhead panel, the floor indicator, the button lights, the emergency strip along the base of the wall. All of it, simultaneously, gone. And the car lurched once, then stopped. Somewhere between the 6th and 5th floors, based on the count I'd been keeping in my head. Total, complete darkness. The kind of darkness where your eyes never adjust because there is nothing, not a crack, not a seam, not a single photon of ambient light for them to find. And the temperature in that car, which had already been wrong, began climbing. I said his name. I didn't know his name. I said, "Hey," and then, "Hey man," and then, "Are you all right?" And he didn't answer. I could hear the building around us, the structure settling, a pipe somewhere far below ticking with pressure changes. But from 4 feet in front of me in that sealed metal box, nothing. Not a word. Not a shift of weight. Not fabric moving against fabric. I almost don't want to say what I did next, because it sounds like something a person would make up, but I swear on everything I have. I reached my hand out into that dark, slowly, palm open, because I needed to know he was still standing there. My hand found the back wall of the elevator, the opposite wall, the one he had been leaning against when the lights were on. My arm was fully extended, and my fingers were touching flat metal, and there was nothing between me and that wall. The elevator car was 6 feet wide. He had been standing less than 4 feet from me. I swept my hand left. I swept it right. I took a full step forward and felt the entire front wall, the doors, the seam, the control panel. I felt the side walls. I crouched and swept the floor with both palms. I was alone in that elevator. The car had not moved. The doors had not opened. And the man who had stepped in on 9, the man I'd been talking to for 45 seconds, was not in that space. Now I need you to hold something in your mind for a moment. I need you to actually feel this before I continue. You're standing in a metal box. The air is dark and hot and getting hotter. You just touched every surface in a sealed space and confirmed that the person who was with you is not with you anymore. There is no way out of this box. There is no way a person could have left. But your hands just told you the truth, and your hands are not wrong. What does your body do first? Before your brain catches up, before logic kicks in, what is the very first thing your body does? In that dark? Think about that. The heat was climbing. I could feel it now on my face, on the backs of my hands, on through my shirt along my shoulders. Not building heat, arriving heat. Like a source had been placed inside the car. I pressed myself back into the corner, and I put my hands on both walls, and I locked my elbows because I needed to feel the geometry of the space I was in. I needed the walls to stay where they were. I needed to know the box was still a box. And then I smelled it. The portfolio, the leather, that specific tanned hide smell of a well-used leather binder. It was strong. Stronger than it had been when he was standing next to me. Like it was right in front of my face. Like something was holding it up to me, inches from my nose. I stopped moving. The smell intensified. My jaw locked shut. I could not make myself speak. And something in that car, something I could not see, and could not feel, and could not locate with my hands in a space that was 6 feet by 8 feet, was close enough to me that I could smell the object it was holding. The heat peaked. The lights came back. I was alone. The elevator resumed. It opened on 5. The hallway was empty. The clipboard, I checked it when I reached the lobby with my shirt soaked through, and my hands shaking so badly I could barely hold the pen. The clipboard had one entry for the entire evening. My name. No one had signed in or out of that building on the 9th floor. No one from the accounting firm had been there that night. I checked with the firm the next day. Their office had been locked since 5:30 p.m. No one had stayed late. No one had been working on quarterlies. There is one part of what happened inside that elevator I have never said out loud. Not this part. Something else. Something about what I felt when the lights came back, in the half-second before my eyes adjusted. Something I saw that I am not going to describe here. There are stories I came across while putting this video together that I considered leaving out entirely. The next one was almost one of them. Not because it's unbelievable, because the person who told it to me asked me 3 separate times if I was sure I wanted to include it. The third time, his voice broke. Story 2. 9:47 Tomorsartam, July 19th, 2021, 43 nautical miles southeast of Key West. And that timestamp is exact because it was logged in the dive computer recovered from the body of a man I'll call Ma. The man I watched descend into 80 feet of black Atlantic water and never come back up the same way he went down. I need to explain what I mean by that, because M did come back up. Technically, his body surfaced, the equipment was recovered, his wetsuit was intact. But the person they pulled out of that water was not the person I had been diving with for 6 years. And what happened between 9:47 p.m. and the moment his body broke the surface at 10:11 p.m. has never been explained by the dive team, the Coast Guard, or the medical examiner who spent 4 hours on the autopsy and used the word inconsistent 11 times in her report. And we were running a night dive on a wreck I'll call the Hartwell, a cargo vessel that sank in 1994 and settled upright on a sand flat at 82 feet. This was not a recreational dive. Em and I were both technical certified, both had over 400 logged dives, and we had been on this exact wreck 9 times before. I am saying this because what happened was not the result of inexperience or poor planning. Every protocol was followed. Every system was checked. The wreck sits in an area where the Gulf Stream pushes warm water over cold bottom layers, and on certain nights in July, the thermocline sits right at 65 feet. You pass through it, and the temperature drops 18 degrees in the space of about 4 feet. You feel it in your core before your skin registers it. That pressure change, that sudden wall of cold, dense water pressing against your chest, is the specific physical sensation I associate with that dive site, and no other place on Earth. Our boat was a 42-foot charter vessel, owned by an operator who ran trips out of Stock Island. She stayed topside with her deckhand, while Em and I kitted up on the swim platform. Full redundant systems, doubles, stage bottles at 30 feet, primary lights rated to 400 feet, backup lights on wrist mounts and tank straps. Em was carrying a camera housing with dual strobes for wreck photography. That housing is important. We descended the mooring line at 9:31. The water was clear above the thermocline, 70+ feet of visibility. The mooring line cutting straight down into blue-green nothing, bioluminescence, sparking off our fin kicks like static electricity in liquid. Beautiful. Calm. The kind of dive where your heart rate actually drops because everything is exactly where it should be. At 60 feet, I could see the outline of the wheelhouse below us, gray and geometric against the white sand. Em gave me an okay sign. I returned it. We passed through the thermocline at 65 feet, and the world changed color. Above us, warm green. Below us, and now around us, deep Atlantic blue going to black at the edges of our light beams. The wreck materialized out of that blue, like a photograph developing in real time. Deck railings first, then the bridge windows, then the full profile of the hull sitting perfectly upright, with a slight list to port. We hit the deck at 78 feet. Em went forward toward the cargo hold with his camera. I went aft to check a section of railing that had been deteriorating on previous dives. Everything was normal. The wreck was quiet. Fish moved through my beam in silver flashes. Barjacks, a small grouper holding station under the gunwale. I ran my hand along the port railing and felt the specific grit of marine growth that had been building on this steel for 27 years. Not smooth, not sharp, but that particular sandpaper texture of barnacle bases worn down by current. I could see M's strobes firing on the forward deck, double flashes of white light that lit the entire bow section for a quarter second at a time. He was maybe 40 feet from me. I could track his position by those flashes alone. At 9:47, according to his dive computer, every light on that wreck went out simultaneously. Not his lights. Every light. My primary. My backups. His primary. His backups. And both strobes on the camera housing. Every LED, every halogen, every chemical backup on both of our rigs. All of them. At the same instant. And I don't mean they dimmed or flickered or shorted. I pressed my primary switch. I pressed my backup switch. I hit the button on my wrist light. Nothing. Like the batteries had been removed from every device on both of our bodies at the same moment. I was at 80 feet in the Atlantic Ocean in absolute darkness. And when I say absolute, I need you to understand what that means at depth, at night, in open ocean. There is no ambient light. There is no moon glow reaching 82 feet of water. There is no difference between opening your eyes and closing them, or your mask becomes the wall of a coffin pressed against your face. Your sense of direction vanishes because you cannot see your bubbles, and without seeing your bubbles, you do not know which way is up. Your body starts lying to you. Inner ear fluid shifts with every head movement and tells you that down is sideways, that the wreck above you is beside you, that you are inverted when you are not. I grabbed the railing. I held on to the deck rail with both hands because that steel was the only thing in the world that could tell me which direction gravity was pulling. I tried to see M's strobes. Nothing. I tried to see my own computer screen. Dead. I held on to that railing, and I started counting. Because counting is the only thing you can do at 80 feet, with no light, and no way to signal your partner, and a decompression obligation that is building with every second you stay at depth. Now I need to ask you something, and I need you to take it seriously. You are 80 feet underwater. Every piece of technology on your body has failed at the same time. You cannot see. You cannot signal. You know that somewhere in the dark ahead of you, your dive partner is in the same situation. You have approximately 18 minutes of gas remaining at this depth. You can ascend, but without a computer, without a light, without being able to see your gauges, you will not know your ascent rate. And ascending too fast from 80 feet will kill you. Staying too long will kill you. Do you let go of the railing and try to find your partner in total blackness? Or do you begin a blind ascent and leave him on the wreck? Alone? You have to choose one. Think about that. I let go. I let go of the railing and I swam forward, following the deck rail with my left hand, pulling myself along the wreck toward where I had last seen M's strobes. I counted kicks. I counted hand-over-hand pulls on the railing. 40 feet is roughly 12 pulls on a rail of that thickness, and I counted 11 pulls before my hand. Found. The camera housing. Sitting on the deck. Upright. Placed there. Not dropped. Placed. The strobes were pointed forward. The lens was facing the cargo hold hatch, and the housing was sitting flat on the deck, plating as if someone had set it down carefully before walking away. M was not holding it. M was not next to it. M was not on the deck. I swept the area with my arms, wide arcs, full extension, covering a radius of about 6 feet in every direction from the housing. I felt deck plating. I felt a cleat. I felt the lip of the cargo hold hatch. I did not feel M. And then the lights came back. All of them. Every single one. My primary, my backups, my wrist light, the camera strobes. All of them, simultaneously, at full power, as if they had never been off. And in that first half second of restored visibility, in the quarter second before my eyes adjusted to the sudden flood of white light, I saw M. He was in the cargo hold, 40 feet below the deck. He was vertical, head up, fins down, arms at his sides, not swimming, not sinking, suspended in the column of black water inside the cargo hold like something was holding him in place, and his regulator wasn't in his mouth. I dropped. I went over the hatch lip. I drove straight down. His eyes were open. His mouth was closed. No bubbles. I shoved the regulator into his face and purged it, and grabbed his BCD inflator and hit it. And we rose. Fast, too fast. I knew it was too fast. I knew what ascending from 120 feet at that speed would do to both of us. And I did it anyway, because he was not responding, and his eyes were open and fixed on something below us, in the hold that I could not see, and I did not look down to find out what it was. We broke the surface at 10:11. The deckhand pulled M onto the platform. The captain was already on the radio. M was breathing. Shallow, rapid, but breathing. His eyes were still open. He did not speak for 14 hours. The medical examiner's report, which I obtained 7 months later through M's family, noted the following: no evidence of drowning, no evidence of nitrogen narcosis, no evidence of oxygen toxicity, no evidence of arterial gas embolism. His blood chemistry was normal. His lung function was normal. His brain scans were normal. But the report also noted 11 times that the bruising pattern on his torso was inconsistent with any mechanical cause or known diving injury. The bruises were bilateral, symmetrical, and ran from his armpits to his hip bones in parallel lines, spaced exactly 4 inches apart, as if something with very long fingers had held him in place. M never dove again. He moved to Montana, as far from the ocean as he could get, 8 weeks later. I spoke to him once on the phone that December. He said 6 words to me. I know what I saw down there. He did not say what it was. 4 people went into the water off that wreck that summer, if you count all the charters that ran on that site. 3 of them came back whole. I need you to understand something before we continue. That was not the worst one. Not even close. Story 3. The first thing I saw was the glow of my own dashboard reflecting off a windshield that wasn't mine. I need to explain that, because it doesn't make sense yet. I was on Route 117 in rural Kentucky, a 2-lane state road that cuts through tobacco country between Harrodsburg and Perryville, and my car had just died. Engine, lights, radio, climate control, everything, gone in a single instant, and like someone had pulled a master fuse from underneath the hood. The car rolled to a stop on the shoulder, and I sat there in the driver's seat with my hands still on the wheel, trying to process what had just happened. It was 2:14 a.m. on October 3rd, 2022. I know the time because I checked my phone immediately after the car died, and my phone was the only thing still working. No signal. That part of 117 is a dead zone for about 8 miles. But the clock was visible, and so was the battery indicator, and so was the flashlight function, which I turned on and pointed through the windshield to see what was in front of me. What was in front of me was another car, a sedan. Dark color, navy or black, impossible to tell without real light. It was parked on the shoulder about 40 feet ahead of me, angled slightly toward the ditch, like it had drifted to a stop rather than pulled over deliberately. No lights, no hazards, no interior glow, just a shape sitting in the absolute darkness of rural Kentucky at 2 in the morning, during what I would later learn was a regional blackout affecting 3 counties. I sat in my car for a full minute before I moved. I need to say this because it's important to what comes next. I am not someone who stops for strangers on empty roads at night. I grew up in a family that talked about this. My mother told me stories. I had rules. But something about the way that car was sitting there made me think someone might need help. The angle of it, the stillness, the way it looked less like it had parked and more like it had stopped functioning, like mine had. I got out. The air was warm for October, mid-60s, no wind, the kind of still humid night where sound carries farther than it should. I could hear my own footsteps on the gravel shoulder. I could hear insects in the fields on both sides of the road. I could hear, very faintly, the ticking of my engine cooling behind me. What I could not hear, and this is the detail that I keep coming back to, the detail that made everything else feel wrong before I even reached the other car, was anything from the vehicle ahead. No engine idle, no radio bleed, no voices, no movement of any kind. I walked toward it with my phone flashlight extended, and the closer I got, the more details I could make out. It was a four-door sedan, probably mid-2000s, American make. The paint was dull, not dirty, just dull, like it had been sitting somewhere for a long time without being washed or waxed. The windows were up, the driver's door was closed, and as I got within 10 feet of the rear bumper, I could see something in the back seat. Not a person. Something. I need to stop here and ask you to do something for me. I need you to actually place yourself on that road. It is 2:14 a.m. You are standing on a gravel shoulder in a county with no streetlights, no houses visible in any direction, no cell signal, and no other cars as far as you can see. Your own vehicle is dead behind you. Ahead of you is a car that should not be there, and inside that car, in the back seat, pressed against the window that faces you, is a shape you cannot identify. The shape is not moving. It might be a person, might be a pile of clothing. It might be something else entirely. You have a flashlight. You could walk closer. You could shine the light directly into that window and find out what you're looking at. Or you could turn around, walk back to your car, lock the doors, and wait until morning. What do you do? Think about that. I walked closer. I had to know. That's the only explanation I have. Something about not knowing was worse than any possible answer. And so I walked the last 10 feet to the rear passenger window, and I raised my phone, and I pressed the flashlight against the glass to cut the reflection, and I looked inside. The back seat was empty, completely empty. No shape, no pile of clothing, no luggage, no nothing. Just gray fabric seats with a pattern of small diamond stitching and a faint watermark stain on the center cushion. And I moved the light across the interior. Front seats, dashboard, floorboards, the space under the steering column. All empty. The keys were not in the ignition. The gear shift was in park. A thin layer of dust covered the dashboard, like the car had been sitting undisturbed for weeks. But I had seen something. I had seen a shape against that window. I had seen it from 30 feet away, and I had watched it as I walked closer. And at some point, between the moment I first saw it and the moment I pressed my light against the glass, it was gone. I stepped back from the car. I turned around. My car was still there, 40 feet behind me on the shoulder, dark and silent and exactly where I had left it. And standing next to it, on the driver's side, with one hand resting on the roof, was a figure. I did not see it arrive. No, I did not hear it approach. I had been looking at my car less than 90 seconds earlier, and there had been nothing there. And now there was a shape standing beside the driver's door in the same darkness I had walked through to reach the sedan. The figure did not move. I did not move. The distance between us was maybe 45 feet. My phone flashlight was pointed at the ground. I could see only the outline. Tall, probably over 6 feet. Shoulders slightly hunched. Head tilted at an angle that was not quite natural. Not quite the way a person stands when they are waiting for someone. And the hand on the roof, the fingers were too long. I could see that even from 45 feet. The proportions were wrong. I want to tell you what I did next, but the truth is, I don't remember the decision. I don't remember choosing to move. I just remember running. Running toward the fields instead of toward my car, crashing through the ditch and into the tobacco rows, and running until my lungs burned and my legs gave out, and I collapsed into the dirt between 2 rows of chest-high plants and lay there with my face against the soil and my hands over my head like a child hiding from a nightmare. I stayed there until dawn. 3 hours, in the dirt, in the dark, listening for anything that might be moving through those fields toward me. I heard nothing. When the sun came up, I walked back to the road. My car started on the first try. The engine turned over like nothing had happened. The lights worked. The radio worked. The sedan ahead of me on the shoulder was gone. Not moved. Gone. No tire tracks in the gravel indicating it had driven away. No indication it had ever been there at all, except for one detail I did not notice until I got back in my car and looked down at my phone. The photos. I had taken photos. I didn't remember doing it. I don't remember deciding to document anything. But there were 4 images in my camera roll time-stamped between 2:16 and 2:17 a.m. 3 of them showed the sedan, exterior, rear window, interior through the glass. Normal. Empty. Exactly what I remembered seeing. The 4th image was pointed at my own car, taken from approximately 40 feet away, pointed at the driver's side door. There was no figure in the photo, but the door, which I had closed when I got out, was open. I have driven Route 117 6 times since that night. I have never seen that sedan again. Then I've asked locals in Harrodsburg and Perryville if anyone knows of an abandoned vehicle matching that description on that stretch of road. No one does. But one man, a farmer who lives about 2 miles from where my car died, told me something I have not been able to stop thinking about. He said in the summer of 2019, a woman's body was found in a drainage ditch, about half a mile from that spot. She had been dead for several weeks when they found her. Her car was never recovered. It was a dark-colored sedan, mid-2000s, American make. Nobody knows who left her there. Nobody knows what happened to the vehicle. And nobody has ever explained how it ended up on that road. 3 years after she died. Story 4. He's not in his room. Those were the first words I heard, shouted down the hallway at 11:47 p.m. And everything that happened after them has never made sense. Not to me. Not to the investigators. Not to anyone who was working that night. I was a night shift nurse at a state psychiatric facility in southern Ohio. I had been on that unit for 3 years. The building was old, constructed in 1958, renovated twice, still carrying the bones of an era when these places were called something else and operated under rules that would not survive modern scrutiny. The unit I worked held 32 patients, all of them on involuntary holds, most of them long-term, and one of them, the one who was not in his room when the lights went out, was a man I'll call Patient 114. I'm not going to describe what Patient 114 had done before he was committed. The file was sealed, and I only saw it once, and the details are not the kind of thing you repeat. What I will tell you is that he had been on our unit for 11 years. He had not spoken a word in over 7. He required 2-person supervision for any movement outside his room, and his room had a reinforced door with a magnetic lock controlled from the nursing station. The lock required continuous power to remain engaged. If power was interrupted, the lock would default to open. At 11:41 p.m. on March 8, 2020, the power went out across the entire facility. Not a flicker, not a brownout. A complete and instantaneous blackout affecting every building on the campus: administration, housing, maintenance, and our unit. The emergency generators were supposed to kick in within 15 seconds. They did not. The backup battery system for the magnetic locks was supposed to maintain security for up to 4 hours. It did not. Every locked door on that unit, 32 patient rooms, the medication storage, the staff break room, the exterior exits, released simultaneously. For 6 minutes, we were in total darkness, with 32 involuntary psychiatric patients and no functioning locks on any door in the building. I was at the nursing station when it happened. The emergency lights should have come on automatically from the battery backup. They did not. I had a flashlight in my desk drawer, and I reached for it. And by the time I had it in my hand and turned on, I could already hear the sounds. Doors opening. Not all at once. One, then another, then another, spreading down the hallway like dominoes falling in slow motion. The magnetic locks had released, and the spring mechanisms in the hinges were doing what spring mechanisms do, pushing the doors open, one by one, into the corridor. I aimed my flashlight down the hall. I could see doors standing open on both sides. I could see shapes emerging from some of them. Patients, confused, disoriented, some of them standing in their doorways, some of them stepping into the hall, some of them still sitting on their beds, visible through the open frames. What I could not see was patient 114's door. His room was at the end of the west corridor, around a corner from the nursing station. I could not see it from where I was standing, but I knew. I knew the moment I heard those locks release, that his door had opened with all the others. The voice that shouted, "He's not in his room," belonged to one of the orderlies, a man who had worked the unit even longer than I had. He had gone to check on 114 the moment the lights went out, because that was the protocol. If anything happened to power or security, you checked on 114 first. Always. No exceptions. And now he was shouting that the room was empty. The next 4 minutes are difficult to describe because they did not follow any logic I can explain. I ran toward the west corridor. The orderly met me halfway, flashlight in hand, face pale even in the dim beam. He said the room was empty, not that 114 had walked out, not that he had seen him leave, but that the room was empty. The bed was made. The personal items, a comb, 3 books, a small plastic cup he used for water, were arranged on the shelf exactly as they always were. But the patient was not there. We searched the corridor. We searched the adjacent rooms. We searched the common area, the bathroom, the supply closets. 30 seconds. Give yourself 30 seconds to imagine this. You are in a building designed to contain people who cannot be trusted to make their own decisions. The building is completely dark. You have one flashlight. Somewhere in that darkness, somewhere in the halls you are now moving through, is a man who has not spoken in 7 years, who requires constant supervision, whose file contains information so disturbing it was sealed by a judge. You cannot see more than 15 feet in any direction. You do not know where he is. Why, and every door between you and the outside world is unlocked. What do you reach for in the next 30 seconds? Before your training kicks in, before protocol takes over, what is the very first thing you want in your hands? Think about that. At 11:47 p.m., 6 minutes after the blackout began, the power came back on. Every light in the building, every magnetic lock, every alarm, every monitor, every system that had failed simultaneously 6 minutes earlier. And patient 114 was back in his room, sitting on his bed, hands folded in his lap, eyes fixed on the wall in front of him, exactly as they had been every day for the past 11 years. The room looked exactly as the orderly had described it. Bed made, items arranged, nothing out of place, except that the orderly had seen the room without 114 in it, and now 114 was there, and the only door into that room had been in full view of the nursing station camera for the entire duration of the blackout. I know this because I reviewed the footage the next morning. The camera had battery backup, a separate system from the locks, one that actually worked. The footage showed the following. At 11:41 p.m., the corridor went dark except for the camera's infrared mode. At 11:41 and 4 seconds, the door to room 114 swung open. At no point during the next 6 minutes did any figure enter or exit that doorway. No shadow, no movement, nothing. At 11:47 p.m., the lights came back on, and patient 114 was visible through the open doorway, sitting on his bed, as if he had been there the entire time. The orderly who had checked the room filed a formal incident report. He stated under oath that the room was empty when he entered it, at approximately 11:42 p.m. He stated that he checked the bed, the corner, the small bathroom attached to the room. He stated that there was nowhere a person could have hidden. The investigation lasted 3 weeks. The official conclusion was equipment malfunction, resulting in temporary confusion among staff. That conclusion did not explain how a man who had not walked unassisted in 4 years moved from his room and back without appearing on camera. It did not explain the marks found on the floor of the corridor the next morning, scuff patterns in the tile that maintenance said were not there during their last cleaning 2 days prior. And it did not explain what the overnight janitor found in the basement utility room when he went to check the generator. A single item placed on top of the generator housing. Patient 114's plastic water cup. The basement was 2 floors below our unit. The stairwell doors were locked with mechanical deadbolts that did not release during the power failure. The elevator was non-functional without power. There was no way a patient, or anyone else, could have reached the basement during those 6 minutes. But the cup was there, placed carefully, centered, as if someone wanted us to find it. The facility closed 8 months later. Budget cuts, they said. Consolidation of services. Patient 114 was transferred to another facility downstate. I never saw him again, but I still have the incident report. I still have the photographs from the investigation. And I still have the question that no one has ever answered. Where was he for those 6 minutes? And what was he doing in the dark? As far as anyone knows, it's still unsolved. Whatever happened in that building that night, still unsolved. Those were 4 true accounts from 3 different people. Before you go, I check the comments after every upload. Not for the numbers, because someone always says something that makes me realize I missed something. What did I miss? Tell me below. Subscribe if you have not already. Turn notifications on. The next one is already being prepared. You will not want to find out about it late. If tonight meant something, if any of these hit somewhere real, leave a like before you go. It is the only way more people find this channel, and these stories deserve to be found. Every story I told you tonight has one thing in common. Not the darkness, not the power going out. Not even what people saw, or thought they saw, in those moments when the lights failed. It's simpler than that. In every single one of these accounts, the person telling the story survived. They made it out. They lived to describe what happened. And that means there are others. People who didn't make it back to the light. People who are still out there. Somewhere in the dark.